Most people think they understand time. It passes. It moves forward. It treats everyone the same. That assumption feels reasonable. Time shows up for everyone at the same rate. Seconds tick, days pass, years accumulate. But when time interacts with money, it stops being neutral. It stops behaving like a backdrop and starts behaving like a force. This is where most misunderstandings begin, because people experience time emotionally, but money experiences it mechanically. Time doesn't reward effort, it rewards position. Two people can move through the same years with the same discipline, the same work ethic, the same intentions, and end up in completely different places. Not because one worked harder, but because time amplified what they were already connected to. Time multiplies structures, not effort, not intention, not sacrifice. This is uncomfortable to accept because it contradicts how progress is usually explained. We're taught that time plus work eventually equals results. Sometimes it does, but only if the structure underneath allows time to accumulate instead of reset. Most people live inside resets. Every month begins again. Every paycheck starts over. Every year clears the board. From the inside, it feels like motion. From the outside, it looks like repetition. Time passing doesn't guarantee progress. It only guarantees exposure. Exposure to costs, exposure to inflation, exposure to systems that adjust quietly. When people say, "I'll deal with money later," they assume later is neutral, that nothing meaningful changes while they wait. But waiting is still positioning, just not an intentional one. Time doesn't pause outcomes, it compounds them, for better or worse. This is why time feels unfair to some people. They didn't waste it, they didn't abuse it, they just assumed it would behave passively. It never does. Time amplifies what exists. If there's ownership, it grows quieter and stronger. If there's dependence, it grows heavier. Most people don't notice this early, because early effects are subtle. Nothing breaks, nothing collapses. It just slowly becomes harder to change direction. This is why understanding time matters before understanding money. Because money doesn't ignore time, it moves with it, and it compounds whatever relationship you already have in place. Time isn't cruel, it's consistent, and consistency favors structure long before it favors effort. Pause for a second. If you're still listening, it's probably because this didn't feel exaggerated. That's intentional. If this way of thinking matters to you, like the video, subscribe. We'll keep going deeper. When people talk about money and time, they usually talk about effort. How hard someone worked, how disciplined they were, how much they sacrificed. Effort feels measurable. Positioning doesn't. It's quieter, less visible, often misunderstood. Time doesn't amplify effort evenly. It amplifies when effort is applied and where it's placed. This is why early and late don't feel like neutral labels. They describe different relationships with time. Early positioning doesn't feel powerful at first. In fact, it often feels insignificant. The gains are small, the movement is slow, the results barely register. Nothing about it looks impressive. That's why most people ignore it. There's no urgency to reward patience early on. Late positioning feels different. There's pressure immediately. The same structures exist, but time is no longer working quietly. It's working loudly. Late positioning compresses outcomes. Mistakes feel heavier. Delays feel expensive. Effort increases, but leverage doesn't. Everything requires more input for less visible change. This contrast creates a common illusion that early success was effortless and late struggle is personal. Neither is true. The difference isn't motivation, it's exposure. Early positioning has more time to absorb mistakes. Late positioning has less room to adjust. Time forgives early uncertainty. It punishes late hesitation. That's why hindsight feels unfair. Looking back, outcomes appear obvious, but they weren't obvious at the time. They were just early. This is why effort alone never explains outcomes. Two people can apply the same intensity at different points in time and experience completely different results. One feels steady progress, the other feels constant resistance. Same work, different timing. Time doesn't correct for lateness, it magnifies it. This isn't punishment, it's mechanics. Understanding this reframes frustration, not as personal failure, but as positional reality. Late positioning isn't hopeless, but it's heavier. Early positioning isn't genius, it's quiet alignment. Time doesn't care about intentions, it responds to when and where you enter the structure. That's why timing feels invisible until it's irreversible, and why people only notice it once it's already working against them. Most content talks at you. This one sits with you. If that difference stood out, if this felt real instead of loud, like the video, subscribe. This channel is built for people who notice patterns. One of the quietest misunderstandings about money is believing that all earnings age the same way. They don't. Time treats income and assets very differently. Income exists in moments. It arrives, it gets used, it disappears. Each paycheck resets the clock. What you earned last month doesn't help you earn this month. The process starts over every single time. This is why income feels exhausting. It demands constant renewal. Time doesn't build on income. It clears it. Assets behave differently. They don't reset with time. They accumulate inside it. An asset doesn't care how many times you check on it. It ages forward regardless. Time compounds assets even when nothing feels like it's happening. Growth doesn't announce itself. This is why early ownership feels slow. The effects are microscopic at first. Nothing looks different. Nothing feels different. That's the trap. Income rewards activity. Assets reward duration. Duration doesn't feel productive. It feels passive, uneventful. So people underestimate it. They overvalue visible effort and undervalue invisible time. This is why working longer doesn't stack the way people expect. More hours don't layer on top of each other. They replace each other. Yesterday's effort expires when today begins. Assets don't expire daily. They persist. This persistence is what time favors, not because assets are special, but because they remain present. Time doesn't reward movement. It rewards continuity. This is why income can rise for decades and still leave people exposed. There's no accumulated protection. The moment income stops, time stops working in your favor. It starts working against you. Assets reverse that relationship. They allow time to continue operating even when effort pauses. That doesn't mean effort disappears. It means effort stops being the sole input. Most people don't struggle with money because they misunderstand effort. They struggle because they misunderstand aging. They assume time treats all money equally. It never has. Time clears income. Time compounds assets. That difference explains more frustration than most people realize. If this feels familiar, if you've felt this pressure but never had words for it, this channel isn't here to motivate you. It's here to help you see clearly. If that resonates, like the video. Subscribe. More clarity is coming. Delay is usually misunderstood as inaction, as if nothing is happening while nothing is chosen. But time doesn't interpret delay that way. To time, delay is still a position, just one without intention. When people say they'll deal with money later, they assume later preserves options, that nothing meaningful changes in the meantime. But delay doesn't freeze outcomes. It quietly narrows them. This is why delay is costly even without mistakes, even without bad decisions. Compounding doesn't wait for clarity. It responds to presence. If something isn't positioned to compound, time doesn't pause. It moves on. That movement has consequences, not visible ones, structural ones. The cost of delay isn't dramatic. There's no penalty notice, no warning signal. Just fewer years left for time to do its work, and fewer chances to adjust direction. This is why late positioning feels heavy, not because the opportunity disappeared, but because time became compressed. When time is abundant, mistakes dissolve. When time is scarce, mistakes compound. Delay converts flexibility into urgency, and urgency makes everything feel expensive. People often confuse patience with delay. They aren't the same. Patience is structured waiting. Delay is unstructured exposure. One works with time. The other lets time work alone. This distinction explains why some people move slowly and still advance, while others move constantly and feel stuck. It's not speed that matters. It's alignment. Delay feels harmless early because the cost is invisible. But invisibility doesn't mean absence. Time is still charging, just quietly. By the time the cost becomes obvious, the discount is gone. Only full price remains. This is why people look back and feel confused. They didn't make catastrophic mistakes. They just assumed nothing was happening while they waited. Something always is. Time doesn't punish delay. It simply reallocates advantage to whatever was already positioned. That's the cost most people never calculate. Not money lost, but years that never compounded. Understanding this isn't about regret, it's about precision. Because once delay is seen clearly, it stops feeling neutral. It becomes visible for what it is. If this made sense to you, you already understand more than most people do. This channel exists for that kind of awareness. Like the video. Subscribe. Nothing here is accidental. Once time is understood correctly, urgency loses its grip. Not because time stops mattering, but because speed stops being confused with progress. Speed feels productive. Alignment feels quiet. Most people are taught to move faster when outcomes disappoint them. Work harder, accelerate, compress timelines. That instinct makes sense inside systems that reward activity. But time doesn't reward activity. It rewards consistency applied to the right structure. Without alignment, speed just burns energy. This is why patience is misunderstood. People think patience means waiting. It doesn't. Patience means remaining aligned long enough for time to matter. Waiting without alignment is delay. Alignment without speed is positioning. One wastes years, the other uses them. Time doesn't ask how busy you were. It only reflects what you stayed connected to. This is why some outcomes look effortless in hindsight. They weren't rushed. They weren't optimized. They were allowed to age, quietly, uninterrupted. Money behaves the same way. It doesn't respond to intensity. It responds to duration inside the right structure. Once that's understood, pressure changes shape. It becomes informational instead of emotional. You stop asking how fast you should move and start noticing what time is actually working on. That awareness removes panic, not because outcomes are guaranteed, but because confusion is gone. Clarity doesn't rush, it stabilizes. This is the quiet advantage most people never access. Not knowledge, not tactics, just an accurate understanding of how time behaves. Time isn't something you beat, it's something you align with. And once alignment exists, speed becomes optional. If this changed how you think about time, if this gave clarity instead of urgency, like the video, subscribe, turn on notifications. More perspective is coming.